The truth the girls. The truth the girls.
Hi everyone. Well, the Occupy Wall Street movement is still going strong. Some people are now even extending this to not only Occupy Wall Street, but Occupy the Fed. You can find out more about Occupy the Fed Dallas at Texas Video Truth channel. And the Occupy Wall Street protesters are now kind of going beyond occupying just Wall Street. So a few hundred of them walked past the homes of some of the richest of the rich, the top 1%. And basically what they're objecting to is the tax laws, for one, that the richer you are, the less you get taxed. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. As expected, in New York and in Boston and elsewhere, the police are not taking kindly to all this protesting. It's now reported that yesterday, on the 11th of October, the Boston police arrested scores of people, and in the process, people got hurt, including war veterans. It may be actually that the veterans didn't just get trampled by accident, in the scuffle, but that the police might have beaten them. So the police are basically protecting the elite, the rich, Wall Street, which doesn't really surprise me, because after all, they're the ones that they get all their funding from. But is this protest having any effect on the Wall Street tycoons themselves? Apparently not. Apparently it has done absolutely nothing to change their mindset about how much money they should be making. But what do you expect? These are Wall Street CEOs. You think they're going to be like, yeah, it's not fair, I shouldn't be making so much money, I'll take a pay cut. But the protesters aren't giving up, and understandably, things are heating up. The American Dream says, buckle up, America is getting very angry and the protests are going to become much more frightening. So far, the protests have been relatively tame, compared to what goes on in the Middle East. But with the economy still in decline and Americans' prosperity, to which they are so accustomed, now vanishing, people are being shaken out of their comfort zone and they're getting angry. And as one example, this article mentions that protesters stormed the Senate Hart Office building in Washington, D.C. today, and a handful of protesters were arrested. Storming government offices? Yeah, it's heating up. Up until now, I had been mainly concerned that this would heat up too much, and explode, and it would be used as just an excuse to clamp down more on Americans' freedoms. Their freedom of speech, their freedom to assemble, maybe their right to carry arms, and also things like, maybe extending laws that allow the government to wiretap their phones and things like that without a warrant, sneak and peek searches, all this kind of stuff. The protest could be used as a reason to extend those kind of policies. And I was even worried that it could bring in martial law. The government does have plans for what to do in a really big emergency situation, what they would consider an emergency, which even includes detention camps. Now, this is what I'd been worried about. But, I think that if you put yourself in the position of the government, that might not be such a desirable thing, to have it all blow up in your face like that. It might get out of control. And as Brzezinski said, it is now easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. So having things get out of control is not what the government wants. When protests like this happen in Egypt, they just run the people over with embassy vans. They don't do that in North America. I sometimes wonder why. Maybe it's just because the American people are armed. Gun sales have been up a lot since 2008. And they've got groups like the Oath Keepers who've sworn to uphold the Constitution. Maybe the government really just is afraid of all these armed civilians and what they might do. But what they might do is just totally hijack the movement. And right now, to me, it looks like this is the most likely possibility. Why would I think that? Well, for one, I'd like to refer back to this article from Blacklisted News. Occupy Wall Street protests full of useful idiot communists and socialists. Some people took offense to Lee Rogers saying that, but here's how he explains it. Most of these useful idiot protesters know absolutely nothing about how the global financial system works and know less than nothing about the central banking systems of the world. And since they really don't understand, they don't know it, this is why you get people holding up signs like this capitalism doesn't work. We have groups like this in Montreal too, and it always gets a bit of a bad reaction out of me because what we're dealing with, it's not just capitalism. I don't really think capitalism is the problem. I think it's more to do with corporatism and, an oligarchy running the world and globalism. I don't think it's capitalism. And so what these people might inadvertently be doing is denouncing capitalism and basically asking for communism and socialism. The Obama administration has moved America closer and closer towards a socialist system already, just in the last few years with, the health care reform bill, which was really just forcing people to buy health insurance and things like that. And so it didn't come as a really big surprise to me when I saw this, the kicker. It's official, Obama has embraced Occupy Wall Street. That's really kind of ironic because he's one of those elites. And it was the elites who brought him into power with their control of the media and their rigged Diebold machines and all that kind of thing. But why would he embrace Occupy Wall Street? Because it's a clever and cunning plan to just take away more of your freedom and turn you into a communist country where the government gives you handouts and then tells you how to live in every area of your life. Yeah, they'll give you more social services or handouts or relief or whatever, but it comes at a price. Every time you agree to receive assistance, you're basically entering into a contract, and when you do that, you give up some of your rights and freedoms. This is why, for example, the CPS constantly targets the homes of people who are on welfare, and they just like march in and see what they're doing. This is why in England they wanted to they even actually did it then, put cameras into the homes of people on social assistance to see if they were getting their kids up on time and sending them to school and what they were doing in their homes. It's just another step towards putting you under more surveillance. You can't have it both ways. You can't be expecting handouts and at the same time expect to maintain the same level of freedom that you're accustomed to. And this all suits the globalists very well. They're really into wealth redistribution. My guess is it probably won't affect the richest of the rich, but it might affect like more taxes for the more upper middle class or upper class, more handouts for the poor, while the middle class is dissolving and more people are going down onto the receiving end. And then things will be evened out by the richer bracket, having to give more money in taxes, which will then supposedly go to taking care of the needy, which is kind of how it is in Canada. The more money you make, the more tax you pay, and the less money you make, the more you're eligible for things like daycare subsidies and stuff like that. But will they really tax the rich? I somehow doubt it. I'm sure that they'll come up with some ways to keep their money in offshore accounts or have it invested in something or do whatever it is with it. But I really don't think that Obama is gonna, tax his own, just like Bush said, these are my people, the haves and the haves more, something like this, my home base. They're not gonna do that to their own people. They'll just come up with some other way to redistribute wealth. And, people might get sucked into it and think that it's a solution, but I don't see how it's any better than what you have now. And honestly, I'm not trying to be cynical here, but I think they're just going to take this like they take everything else and use it to their advantage, clamp down on you more, take away more of your rights and freedoms, give you more handouts, put you in more contracts, and just use all this to further their agenda. That's what I really think. I hate to say it, but just being honest. So, well, let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.
Because you know what? The thing with the helping the poor thing, it never gets to us. The money never gets to us.